The text message came through at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, just as I was elbow-deep in dishwater, scrubbing the breakfast plates my husband had left in the sink. Again, my sister Vanessa's name lit up my phone screen, followed by a string of excited emojis and a message that made my heart skip. Surprise! We booked you a full-day spa package at Serenity Springs. All 4 of us sisters together. This Saturday. No excuses. You deserve this, Claire. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I stared at the message, suds dripping from my fingers onto the kitchen floor. A spa day. A whole day of massage and facials and sitting in robes drinking cucumber water with my sisters. When was the last time I'd done something like that? When was the last time I'd done anything just for myself? My mother-in-law Patricia's voice echoed from the living room where she was supposedly helping organize our family photos, though I suspected she was actually judging every decorating choice I'd made in the 15 years Richard and I had lived in this house. Claire dear, are you planning to do something about this water damage on the ceiling? It really does make the whole room look rather neglected. I closed my eyes and counted to 10 the way my therapist had taught me before I'd stop going because Richard said therapy was a waste of money. Before we continue with what happened next, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Claire Donovan and at 42 years old I thought I knew exactly who I was. I was Richard's wife. I was the mother of 2 teenagers, Maya and Connor, who barely looked up from their phones anymore when I walked into a room. I was the daughter-in-law who hosted every holiday dinner and smiled through Patricia's constant criticism. I was the sister who always said yes, who always showed up, who always put everyone else first. Our home sat on a quiet street in Riverside, a neighborhood where the houses all looked vaguely the same, with their neat lawns and 2-car garages and the kind of sameness that felt safe when we bought it but now just felt suffocating. Richard worked in pharmaceutical sales, traveling 3 or 4 days a week, leaving me to manage everything at home. The kids, the house, his mother, the endless list of things that needed fixing or organizing or attending to. I'd given up my job as a graphic designer when Maya was born, just temporarily, Richard had promised. Just until the kids were in school. But then there was always another reason why it wasn't the right time for me to go back to work. The kids needed me. The house needed attention. His career was taking off and he needed support at home. 15 years had passed in what felt like a blink. And now my portfolio was outdated and my confidence was shattered, and I'd somehow become invisible in my own life. The spa day message sat on my phone like a lifeline. Vanessa, my youngest sister at 36, had always been the spontaneous one. Then there was Julia, 39, the organized perfectionist who probably had a spreadsheet for this spa day. And Diane, the oldest at 45, who'd gotten divorced 3 years ago and had emerged from it somehow stronger and freer than I'd ever seen her. I texted back quickly, my heart already lighter. This is amazing. Yes. Thank you. I can't wait. The response came immediately from the group chat that apparently already existed without me. Julia had created it, naturally, and named it Sister Spa Squad. Vanessa sent a gif of someone doing a happy dance. Diane wrote, "Finally. You need this more than anyone, Claire Bear." That nickname. Nobody had called me Claire Bear since before I got married, before I became the version of myself that Richard preferred. Quieter. More accommodating. Less demanding. What are you smiling about? Patricia appeared in the kitchen doorway, her silver hair perfectly styled as always, her expression carrying that permanent hint of disapproval she seemed to reserve especially for me. She was wearing one of her St. John's suits, because apparently even casual days at her son's house required designer clothing. "My sisters are taking me to a spa on Saturday," I said, unable to keep the excitement from my voice. "A whole day. Massages, facials, the works." Patricia's lips pursed in that way that meant she was about to say something cutting disguised as concern. "This Saturday? But that's when Richard gets back from his Chicago trip. Don't you think he'll want you home?" The joy deflated slightly. Richard. I'd forgotten he was coming back Saturday evening. But surely he wouldn't mind me having one single day for myself. "He'll be fine," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "The kids are old enough to fend for themselves for a few hours." "Well, I suppose," Patricia sniffed. Though I do think a wife's place is with her family, not gallivanting off to spas. But then what do I know? I'm just old-fashioned. I bit my tongue, literally bit down on it to keep from saying what I was thinking, which was that Patricia's old-fashioned values hadn't stopped her from spending Richard's father's money on luxury cruises and designer handbags after he died, hadn't stopped her from expecting me to drop everything whenever she needed something, hadn't stopped her from inserting herself into every aspect of our marriage. Instead, I smiled the smile I perfected over 15 years. I'm sure you're right, Patricia. But it's already booked, so I'll make it work. She made a small humming sound that could have meant anything and returned to the living room. I heard her moving things around, the sound of albums being pulled from shelves. She'd been here since Monday, ostensibly to help me sort through old photos for Maya's upcoming 16th birthday party, but really to remind me in 1,000 small ways that this house, this life, this family belonged more to her than to me. The rest of the week passed in the usual blur of activity. Driving Connor to soccer practice. Helping Maya shop for a dress for some school dance. Grocery shopping, laundry, cleaning, cooking. Richard called every night from Chicago, our conversations brief and functional. Yes, I'd picked up his dry cleaning. No, I hadn't forgotten about the dinner with his boss next month. Yes, his mother was still here. No, I didn't mind. I minded. I minded so much that sometimes I lay awake at night feeling like I was suffocating under the weight of all the things I didn't say, all the ways I made myself smaller and quieter and less troublesome. But Saturday was coming. Saturday I would be Claire again, not Mom or Honey or Patricia's daughter-in-law. Just Claire. Getting a massage and drinking cucumber water and laughing with my sisters like we used to before life got so complicated. Friday night, Patricia announced she was staying the weekend. To help with the children while you're gone, she said, as if Maya and Connor were toddlers instead of teenagers. And to make sure the house is ready for Richard when he gets home. Something about the way she said it made my skin prickle with unease, but I pushed the feeling down. I was being paranoid. Patricia had stayed weekends before. It was fine. Everything was fine. Saturday morning arrived bright and cool. One of those perfect autumn days where the leaves were just starting to turn, and the air smelled like possibility. I'd barely slept, too excited about the day ahead. At 7 a.m., I was already showered and dressed, my overnight bag packed with a change of clothes for afterward. Vanessa was picking me up at 8:30. The spa was an hour away, tucked into the mountains outside the city, and our appointments started at 10. We'd have massages, then facials, then lunch by the pool, then more treatments, then dinner at the resort restaurant. A whole day. 12 glorious hours of being taken care of instead of taking care of everyone else. You look happy, Maya observed from the kitchen table, where she was scrolling through her phone while eating cereal. At 15, she'd grown beautiful in that devastating way that made me ache with nostalgia for when she was small and still thought I was the center of her universe. I am happy, I said, surprised by how true it was. When was the last time you saw me do something just for myself? Maya looked up from her phone, really looked at me, and something flickered across her face. Concern maybe, or recognition. Mom, are you okay? Like really okay? The question caught me off guard. When was the last time anyone had asked me that? When was the last time anyone had looked past the smile I wore like armor and seen the exhaustion underneath? I'm fine, sweetie. Just excited for today. It's just you seem different lately. Sad or something. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to sit down at that table and explain that I was disappearing, that I looked in the mirror sometimes and didn't recognize the woman looking back, that I'd given up so much of myself I wasn't sure there was anything left. But she was 15 and she was my daughter, and that wasn't her burden to carry. I'm not sad, I lied. I'm just tired. That's why today will be so good for me. Connor thundered down the stairs then, 17 in all angles and appetite, already asking what was for breakfast as if the kitchen wasn't full of food. Patricia followed him, fully dressed and made up despite the early hour, and I felt the familiar tension settle into my shoulders. The car service will be here at 9, Patricia announced, pouring herself coffee. For the furniture pickup. I froze with my hand on my purse. What furniture pickup? Patricia looked at me with that expression she got when she thought I was being deliberately obtuse. The furniture Richard asked me to arrange. For the redecorating. He did tell you about this, didn't he? My heart started beating faster. Richard didn't say anything about furniture. Oh dear. Patricia's voice dripped with false sympathy. Well, he probably didn't want to worry you with the details. You know how he is about surprising you with improvements to the house. He's having some pieces removed for reupholstering, and replacing a few things that are looking rather worn. I thought about our furniture. The couch we'd bought together when we first moved in, where I'd nursed both babies and fallen asleep during countless movie nights. The dining room table that had belonged to my grandmother, the one thing I'd insisted on keeping when we got married. The bookshelf Richard always complained was too big, but that held all my favorite novels and my collection of art books from my design days. What pieces? My voice came out sharper than I intended. I'm not entirely sure of the details, dear. Richard handled all of that with the company. But don't worry, they're professionals. Very discreet. Everything will be taken care of while you're at your spa day.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
The way she said spa day made it sound frivolous, indulgent, selfish. In fact, it's rather perfect timing, isn't it? You'll be gone, so you won't have to deal with the disruption. The doorbell rang. Vanessa, right on time, her smile bright and her energy infectious as always. She breezed in wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, looking more alive and free than I felt. Ready for the best day ever? She asked, grabbing my bag before I could protest. Oh, hi Patricia. Wow, you're up early. Don't worry, we'll have her home by 9 tonight, safe and sound. Patricia smiled that tight smile of hers. Have a wonderful time, Claire. Don't worry about a thing here. I'll make sure everything is taken care of. There it was again, that prickle of unease. But Vanessa was already pulling me toward the door, and I could see Julia's SUV idling in the driveway with Diane in the passenger seat, and I wanted this so badly. I wanted one day where I didn't have to think about everyone else's needs and schedules and expectations. I'll have my phone, I called back to Patricia, to the kids who were already absorbed in their devices again. Call if you need anything. We won't need anything, Patricia assured me. You just relax and enjoy yourself. You deserve it. Later I would remember those words. I would replay them in my mind and hear the lie underneath, the careful construction of a trap disguised as kindness. But in that moment I chose to believe her. I chose to believe that for once, just this once, I could have something for myself. The drive to Serenity Springs was everything I'd needed. Vanessa drove while Julia navigated from the back seat, and Diane controlled the music, and we sang along to songs from our teenage years, our voices getting louder and more off-key with each chorus. We talked about everything and nothing. Diane's new job at the art gallery. Julia's youngest daughter starting kindergarten. Vanessa's latest disastrous date from some app where everyone lied about their height and their intentions. Nobody asked about Richard. Nobody asked about the kids or the house or whether I was keeping up with everything. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I was just Claire, one of 4 sisters, laughing so hard my stomach hurt. Serenity Springs Resort was tucked into the mountains like a secret, all-natural stone and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over pine forests and a lake that reflected the sky like a mirror. The spa itself was underground, lit by soft amber lights and smelling of eucalyptus and lavender. They gave us plush robes and slippers and led us to a quiet room with heated stone loungers where we could wait for our appointments. This is incredible, I breathed, sinking into a lounger that seemed to mold itself to my body. How did you guys afford this? Don't worry about it, Vanessa said quickly. Too quickly. I looked at her, then at Julia and Diane. They were all avoiding my eyes. Seriously, this place must cost a fortune. You didn't have to do this. We wanted to, Julia said firmly. You've been there for all of us through everything. When I had postpartum depression with Emma, you came over every day for 2 months. When Diane was going through her divorce, you let her live in your guest room for half a year. When Vanessa needed surgery last year, you were at the hospital before the rest of us. You take care of everyone, Diane added softly. We wanted to take care of you for once. Something in her voice made my throat tight. I'd been holding it together so well, but the kindness, the being seen, it cracked something open inside me. Hey, Vanessa said, sitting up and looking at me with concern. Claire, are you crying? No, I lied, wiping my eyes. It's just this is so nice. Thank you. Really. But Diane was watching me with that older sister intensity that always saw too much. How are things really, Claire Bear? And don't give me the automatic fine response. How are things with Richard? I opened my mouth to say fine, to give the answer I always gave, to smooth over and minimize and protect the image of my perfect marriage. But sitting there in that peaceful room with the eucalyptus scent and the soft music in my sister's concerned faces, something broke. I don't know, I whispered. I don't know anymore. He's never home. When he is home, he barely sees me. His mother runs my life. The kids don't need me the way they used to. And I just feel so empty. Like I've disappeared and nobody even noticed. The words hung in the air, terrifying in their honesty. I'd never said them out loud before, never admitted to anyone, not even myself, how lost I felt. Oh, Claire, Julia said, and there were tears in her eyes too. How long have you felt this way? I don't know. Years, maybe? It happened so gradually I didn't realize it until one day I woke up, and I didn't recognize my own life anymore. Have you talked to Richard about this? Diane asked, and there was something in her voice, an edge that made me look at her more closely. No. He's always so busy, and when I try to bring up anything serious he shuts down. Or Patricia interrupts. Or there's some crisis with work that takes priority. It never seems like the right time. Vanessa and Julia exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. Before I could ask about it, a spa attendant appeared to take Diane back for her massage. The moment passed, but the unease that had started that morning in my kitchen came flooding back. Is everything okay? I asked Vanessa once Diane was gone. With you guys, I mean. You're not hiding something from me, are you? What? No. Vanessa's voice was too bright, too cheerful. Everything's great. We're just here to pamper you. That's all. But Julia was terrible at lying, and I could see the guilt written all over her face. Jules, I said slowly. What's going on? Nothing, she said quickly. I'm just glad you're here with us. That's all. The attendant returned then to take me back from my massage, and I had to let it go. But as I followed her through the candlelit corridors to the treatment room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That my sisters knew something I didn't. That Patricia's careful words that morning had meant more than I'd understood. The massage was supposed to be relaxing, but I couldn't turn my brain off. The therapist worked on my shoulders, commenting on how much tension I was carrying, how tight my muscles were. But every time I started to drift into that peaceful state, my mind would snap back to Patricia's face. The furniture pickup. The perfect timing. Richard hadn't mentioned any redecorating. He never did anything around the house without complaining about the costs first. You're not relaxing, the therapist said gently. Try to let your thoughts go. Focus on your breathing. I tried. I really tried. But something was wrong. I knew it in my bones, in my gut, in that deep instinctive place that we're taught to ignore when it contradicts what we're being told. When the massage ended, I checked my phone. No messages from Patricia or the kids. That should have been reassuring, but instead it made the anxiety worse. I texted Patricia. Everything okay there? The response came back quickly. All fine. Enjoy your day. Too cheerful. Too quick. Too dismissive of a question that deserved more than 3 words and an exclamation point. I found my sisters at lunch, sitting by the indoor pool with plates of beautiful, artfully arranged food that I couldn't imagine eating. My stomach was churning now, my heart rate elevated, my hands trembling slightly. Claire, you look pale, Diane said immediately. What's wrong? I think something's happening at the house, I said. Patricia said Richard arranged for furniture to be picked up, but he never mentioned anything about it to me. And you guys are being weird. Please just tell me if you know something. The 3 of them went silent. Julia looked like she might cry. Vanessa stared down at her plate. And Diane looked angry. We didn't know for sure, Diane said finally. We hoped we were wrong. Wrong about what? My voice came out louder than I intended, echoing slightly in the pool area. A few other guests looked over. I didn't care. What's happening? Richard called me 2 weeks ago, Diane said, each word careful and measured. He asked me about divorce lawyers. Said he wanted to know who I'd used, what the process was like. He made me promise not to tell you. The world tilted sideways. Divorce. Richard wanted a divorce. And instead of talking to me about it, he was what? Having furniture removed while I was conveniently away at a spa day that my sisters had arranged with suspiciously perfect timing. You knew, I said, looking at all three of them. You all knew he was planning something and you still brought me here. You helped him get me out of the house. No, Vanessa said desperately. We didn't know what he was planning. We just knew something was off. When he called last week and suggested we do something nice for you, said you deserved a day to yourself, we hoped maybe he was trying to do something good for once. We didn't realize. But you suspected, I said, standing up. The robe suddenly felt like a costume, like I was playing dress up in someone else's life. You suspected he was planning something and you still went along with it. We wanted to give you one good day, Julia said, tears streaming down her face now. Before everything fell apart. We wanted you to have one more good day. One more good day. As if they'd already mourned the death of my marriage, already written the eulogy for the life I'd built. And maybe they were right to. Maybe they'd seen what I'd refused to see for years, that Richard had checked out of our marriage long ago, that I'd been living in a house with a man who saw me as an obligation rather than a partner. I grabbed my phone and called home. It rang 5 times before Connor answered, his voice distracted. Yeah. Connor, what's going on there? Is everything okay? Yeah? Grandma's here. Some guys are moving stuff. I'm playing Fortnite. Moving stuff. Not picking up furniture for reupholstering. Moving stuff. What stuff? What are they moving? I don't know, Mom. Like a lot of stuff? The couch and some boxes and I think your bookshelf. Grandma said Dad wanted it gone. My bookshelf. My grandmother's bookshelf with all my books and all my memories and all the pieces of myself I tried to hold on to. He was having it removed. Thrown away. Erased. Put your grandmother on the phone. She's outside with the movers. Mom, is everything okay? You sound weird. Everything's fine, baby. I'll be home soon. I hung up before he could ask any more questions. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Diane was already standing, pulling off her robe. We're leaving, she announced. Right now. Vanessa, get the car. But the rest of our appointments, Julia started, then stopped when she saw my face. Never mind. Let's go. We changed in record time, barely speaking. The good day that my sisters had tried to give me crumbling around us. In the car, Diane drove while Vanessa called lawyers from the back seat. Julia sat next to me, holding my hand while I stared out the window at the mountains that had looked so beautiful on the drive up, and now just looked like obstacles between me and my home. My home that Richard was apparently emptying while I sipped cucumber water and got my shoulders rubbed. My home where Patricia was supervising the removal of my belongings under the guise of helping, of taking care of things, of making sure everything was ready for Richard's return. Only he wasn't planning to return, was he? Not really. Not to me. How fast can you get there? I asked Diane. She glanced at me, then pressed her foot harder on the accelerator. 45 minutes. 45 minutes to get home and face whatever was waiting for me there. 45 minutes to prepare myself for the end of the life I'd built, the identity I'd constructed, the future I'd imagined. But as the miles passed and my sisters surrounded me with their fierce protective love, something else started building inside me alongside the fear and betrayal. Something hot and sharp and long overdue. Anger. Richard wanted to erase me from my own life? Patricia wanted to help him do it? They thought they could manipulate me with spa days and perfect timing and lies disguised as kindness? They were about to learn that disappearing wasn't the same as being gone. And that the woman they dismissed and overlooked and taken for granted all these years was still here, was still fighting, was still Claire fucking Donovan. And I was done disappearing. The drive home felt both endless and too short. Every mile brought me closer to a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. But the anger burning in my chest wouldn't let me turn back. Diane drove with the focused intensity she brought to everything. Her jaw set and her hands gripping the wheel like she was preparing for battle. In the passenger seat, Vanessa was still on the phone with her friend Marcus, a family law attorney, scribbling notes on the back of a spa brochure. He says don't sign anything, Vanessa said, turning to look at me. No matter what Richard says, no matter what Patricia tries to convince you of, do not sign a single document without having a lawyer review it first. I'm not signing anything, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Inside I was screaming, but years of practice at keeping my emotions contained had trained me well. Too well. I'm not agreeing to anything until I understand exactly what's happening. Julia reached over and squeezed my hand. She'd been crying quietly in the back seat, her mascara leaving dark tracks down her cheeks. Julia always cried when she was angry, had since we were kids. I can't believe he's doing this. I can't believe after 15 years, after everything you've sacrificed, he's just throwing you away like garbage. He's not throwing me away, I said, and the words felt important somehow. I'm not garbage that can be discarded. Whatever he's doing, whatever he thinks he's doing, I'm still here. I'm still me. But even as I said it, I wondered who me was anymore. I'd spent so long being Richard's wife, Patricia's daughter-in-law, Maya and Connor's mother, that I wasn't sure there was a Claire underneath all those roles. And maybe that's what terrified me most. Not the divorce itself, but the possibility that when Richard stripped away all the labels I'd worn for 15 years, there might be nothing left. We turned onto my street and my stomach dropped. There were two large moving trucks parked in front of my house, their backs open like hungry mouths. Men in blue uniforms were carrying furniture down my front walkway. My couch. My grandmother's dining table. The antique dresser I'd refinished myself when we first moved in. Oh my God, Julia breathed. He's really doing it. He's really moving everything out. Diane pulled into the driveway so fast the tires squealed. Before the car had fully stopped, I was out and running toward the house. One of the movers, a burly man with a clipboard, stepped in front of me. Ma'am, you can't go in there right now. We're in the middle of a job. This is my house, I said, my voice shaking now. Those are my things you're taking. I have a work order here from Richard Donovan authorizing the removal of items specified on this list. He held up the clipboard, but I didn't look at it. I looked past him at my open front door, at Patricia standing in the foyer directing traffic like a general commanding troops. Patricia! I shouted, pushing past the mover. What the hell is going on? She turned, and for just a second, I saw something flash across her face. Surprise maybe, or annoyance that I'd come home early. Then her expression smoothed into that concerned, maternal look she used when she was about to gaslight me. Claire dear, you're home early. I thought you'd be at the spa all day. Is everything all right? Is everything all right? I repeated, my voice rising. You're supervising strangers as they empty my house, and you're asking me if everything is all right? Now, there's no need to get hysterical. Richard simply decided it was time for some changes. He's been unhappy with the decor for quite some time, and he thought it would be easier to have things removed while you were enjoying yourself. He didn't want you to have to deal with the stress of it all. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I almost believed her. Almost let myself be convinced that I was overreacting, that this was normal, that Richard's happiness with the decor was more important than my connection to the furniture we'd chosen together. But then I saw them carrying out my bookshelf, and something in me snapped completely. Stop, I shouted, running toward the movers. Put that down. Right now. The two men looked at each other, then at Patricia, then at me. Ma'am, we have a work order. I don't care what you have. That bookshelf belonged to my grandmother. It's not going anywhere. Actually, Patricia said, her voice taking on that steel edge she usually reserved for waiters who didn't meet her standards. According to the work order, all furniture in the common areas is to be removed. Your bookshelf is in the living room, which is a common area. It's my house. The words tore out of me, raw and desperate. My name is on the deed. My money paid for half of everything in it. You can't just take my things. Our name is on the deed, Patricia corrected, and there was satisfaction in her voice now. Richard's and yours. And Richard has every right to make decisions about shared property. My sisters had caught up to me now, flanking me on either side. Diane stepped forward and her voice was ice. Actually, Patricia, in the state of California, neither spouse can dispose of community property without the other spouse's consent during marriage. So unless Richard has filed for divorce and obtained a court order, which would be a matter of public record, what you're doing right now is illegal. Patricia's eyes narrowed. And who are you to speak about legal matters? Someone who's been through a divorce and learned exactly what her rights are. Diane pulled out her phone. So here's what's going to happen. These movers are going to put everything back, right now. Or I'm calling the police and reporting a theft in progress. You wouldn't dare. Try me. They stared at each other. Two women who'd never liked each other finally dropping all pretense of civility. The movers stood frozen with my bookshelf, looking like they desperately wished they were anywhere else. What's going on? Connor appeared at the top of the stairs, his face confused. Mom? Why are you yelling at Grandma? The sight of my son, my baby who was taller than me now but still had that cowlick that wouldn't stay down, broke something in me. I took a deep breath and forced my voice to steady. Connor, go to your room please. Your father and I need to have a conversation. But Dad's not here. He won't be back until tonight. Then I'll wait. I turned back to the movers. Put everything back. Now, before I call the police. Patricia stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. You're making a terrible mistake, Claire. Richard is trying to do what's best for this family, and you're too selfish to see it. What's best for this family? I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. Or what's best for Richard? Because those aren't the same thing, are they, Patricia? They never have been. How dare you speak to me that way? After everything I've done for you, after all the times I've helped you, supported you, covered for your inadequacies as a wife and mother. The words hit like physical blows, each one landing exactly where she'd aimed them. My inadequacies. As if 15 years of putting everyone else first, of sacrificing my career and my identity and my dreams, had been inadequate. As if the problem was me, not the man who'd stopped seeing me years ago. Get out of my house, I said quietly. What? I said get out. Take your purse, take your coat, and get out of my house. Now. Patricia looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Maybe years of swallowing my anger and my hurt and my resentment had finally driven me insane. Or maybe I was finally sane for the first time in 15 years. You can't throw me out. My son owns this house. My husband owns half of this house. I own the other half. And I'm telling you to leave. Richard will hear about this. I certainly hope so. Maybe then he'll actually have to talk to me instead of sending his mother to do his dirty work. Patricia's face went through several shades of red before settling on a mottled purple. She grabbed her purse from the hall table with enough force to knock over a framed photo of Maya's first birthday. The glass cracked across Maya's smiling face, and Patricia didn't even look back. You'll regret this, she said from the doorway. Richard was going to handle this discreetly, give you a generous settlement, let you leave with some dignity. But now? Now you've made an enemy of me, and trust me, you don't want that. The door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the windows. In the sudden silence that followed, I became aware of everyone staring at me. The movers, my sisters, Connor still frozen at the top of the stairs. Maya had appeared from somewhere, her phone recording everything because of course she was. This was her generation's instinct to document everything to make sure there was proof. Put everything back, I said to the movers, my voice calmer now. Everything you took out of this house, bring it back in and put it exactly where it was. Ma'am, we can't do that without authorization from the person who hired us. Diane was already dialing her phone. This is Diane Walsh calling on behalf of Claire Donovan. I'm reporting an attempted theft at 847 Maple Drive. Yes, moving trucks are currently removing property without the homeowner's consent. No, there's no court order. Yes, we'll wait for officers to arrive. The threat of police involvement changed the mover's tune quickly. The supervisor made a call to his boss, who apparently decided that whatever Richard was paying them wasn't worth the legal liability. Within 20 minutes, my couch was back in the living room, my grandmother's table was back in the dining room, and my bookshelf was back against the wall where it belonged. But nothing was really back where it belonged, because the trust was broken, the illusion was shattered, and I was standing in my house looking at furniture that suddenly felt like set pieces in a play I'd never auditioned for. Mom, Maya said softly, and I realized she was crying. What's happening? Are you and Dad getting divorced? I wanted to tell her no, to reassure her, to protect her from the ugly reality that her parents' marriage had been hollow for years. But looking at her face, at the intelligence in her eyes, I realized she already knew. Maybe she'd known for longer than I had. Maybe children always know when their parents stop loving each other, even when the parents themselves won't admit it. I don't know, baby. Your dad and I need to talk. But whatever happens, it's not your fault, okay? None of this is your fault. She nodded, but I could see she didn't believe me. Connor had disappeared back upstairs, probably to escape into his video games where problems could be solved with the right combination of buttons. Maya stood there for another moment, then turned and ran upstairs, her sobs echoing down the hallway. The sound of my daughter crying was almost enough to break me. Almost enough to make me call Patricia back, apologize, let them take whatever they wanted if it meant keeping my family together. But Diane's hand on my shoulder stopped me. You did the right thing, she said firmly. Don't second-guess yourself now. Did I? My kids are upstairs crying because their mother just threw their grandmother out of the house. Your kids are upstairs crying because their father is a coward who tried to dismantle their home while hiding behind his mother, and a spa day. Julia had stopped crying and now looked furious. This isn't your fault, Claire. None of this is your fault. But it felt like my fault. It felt like if I'd been better, prettier, more interesting, more accommodating, less demanding, less needy, less everything I was and more everything Richard wanted, none of this would be happening. Vanessa was pacing the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. Marcus says you need to document everything. Take photos of all the furniture that was almost removed, screenshot any texts or emails from Richard or Patricia. Write down everything that happened today with dates and times. I don't want to build a case against my husband, I said weakly. I just want to understand what's happening. Claire. Diane knelt in front of me, taking both my hands in hers. Listen to me. I know this is scary. I know you want to believe that Richard is still the man you married, that there's some explanation that will make all of this make sense. But I've been where you are. When Tom told me he wanted a divorce, I spent weeks trying to fix it, trying to figure out what I'd done wrong, trying to be better. And you know what happened? I shook my head, even though I knew the story. I'd been there through all of it. He took everything. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts. By the time I finally hired a lawyer and started protecting myself, there was barely anything left to fight for. Don't make the same mistake I did. Protect yourself now while you still can. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Mom called. What the hell is wrong with you? I'll be home in 2 hours and you better be ready to explain yourself. The text was so typical of him, so perfectly encapsulating everything wrong with our marriage, that I almost laughed. He'd sent movers to empty our house while I was conveniently away, and I was the one who needed to explain myself. I showed the text to my sisters. Vanessa's face went dark. That absolute piece of garbage. He's acting like you're the problem. 2 hours, Julia said, checking her watch. Okay, we have 2 hours to prepare. Claire, you need to eat something. You haven't eaten all day, and you're going to need your strength for this conversation. I can't eat. I feel sick. You're eating, Diane said firmly, already heading toward my kitchen. Even if it's just toast. You're not having this confrontation on an empty stomach. While Diane made food I couldn't imagine eating, Vanessa helped me document everything. We took photos of the furniture, screenshots of texts, videos of the moving trucks driving away. Maya came downstairs and wordlessly handed me her phone, where she'd recorded Patricia's entire tirade. I thought you might need this, she said quietly. For proof. I pulled my daughter into a hug, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling her arms wrap around me. She was so tall now, almost my height, but in that moment she felt small again, like I should be able to protect her from all of this. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry you have to see all of this. I'm not a baby, Mom. I'm 15. And I'm not stupid. I've seen how Dad treats you. How Grandma treats you. I just didn't think they'd actually, do something like this. I pulled back to look at her face. What do you mean how they treat me? Maya looked uncomfortable. It's just Dad's always making you feel bad about stuff. Like when you wanted to take that design class last year and he said it was a waste of money, but then he spent $3,000 on golf clubs. Or how Grandma's always criticizing everything you do, and Dad never stands up for you. He just lets her be mean to you. Out of the mouths of babes. Or in this case, out of the mouth of my teenage daughter who'd apparently been paying far more attention than I'd realized. She'd seen what I'd spent years making excuses for, what I'd told myself was normal, what I'd convinced myself I deserved. You're right, I said quietly. You're absolutely right, and I should have done something about it a long time ago. So what are you going to do now? It was such a simple question, but I didn't have a simple answer. What was I going to do? Stay in a marriage where I'd become invisible? Fight for a man who'd already checked out? Try to fix something that had probably been broken from the start? I don't know yet, sweetheart. But I promise you this, whatever I decide, it's going to be on my terms. Not your dad's, not your grandmother's. Mine. Maya nodded, and something in her face shifted. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of understanding that her mother was more than just the woman who did laundry and made dinner and asked about homework. Connor came downstairs eventually, drawn by the smell of food. Diane had made grilled cheese sandwiches, comfort food from our childhood, and I managed to eat half of one while my sisters bustled around me like protective hens. They cleaned up the mess from the movers, straightened the furniture, picked up the broken picture frame, and swept up the glass. Julia found the work order the movers had left behind and photographed every page. The list of items to be removed was extensive. Not just furniture, but boxes from the attic, files from my home office, personal items from our bedroom. Richard had been planning to remove nearly everything that was mine, everything that marked this house as belonging to both of us rather than just him. This is calculated, Julia said, her voice tight with anger. This isn't just redecorating. He was trying to erase you from your own home. Maybe he already has, I said quietly. Maybe I've been erased for years and I just didn't notice. Stop that. Vanessa crouched in front of me, forcing me to meet her eyes. You are not erased. You are right here. You are Claire fucking Donovan, and you are brilliant and talented and strong, and you've just been stuck in a situation that made you forget that. But you're remembering now, aren't you? I can see it in your eyes. You're waking up. She was right. I could feel it, something shifting inside me, something that had been dormant for 15 years starting to stir. The Claire who'd graduated top of her design class, who'd won awards for her work, who'd once believed she could do anything. She was still in here somewhere, buried under years of making herself smaller and quieter and less. At 6:30 we heard a car in the driveway. Richard's BMW, the one he'd bought last year despite us being behind on the mortgage. My sisters moved to flank me, a wall of support. Maya and Connor stayed in the kitchen, listening but not watching, not ready to see whatever was about to happen. Richard came through the front door already angry, his face red, his tie loosened. He stopped when he saw me on the couch with my sisters arrayed around me like bodyguards. "What the hell did you do?" he demanded, not even bothering with a greeting. "My mother called me in tears. She said you threw her out of the house. She said you verbally abused her in front of the children." "I told her to leave," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "After I caught her supervising movers who were removing my belongings from my home without my knowledge or consent." "Our home," he corrected automatically. "And I was having some things reupholstered, stored, rearranged. It's not a big deal. Show me the receipt." "What?" "The receipt from the reupholstery company. Or the storage unit rental. If you were just having things temporarily removed, you must have receipts, documentation, a plan for where everything was going." Richard's jaw clenched. "I don't have to explain my decisions to you. This is my house too." "Actually," Diane said calmly, "you do. California is a community property state. Any disposal of joint assets requires consent from both parties. What you were attempting to do today was illegal." "Who asked you?" Richard turned his anger on my sister. "This is between me and my wife. I don't remember inviting you into my home." "Claire invited us," Vanessa said sweetly. "And since it's her home too, I think that counts." Richard looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in years. Maybe he was. Maybe the Claire who sat quietly while he made all the decisions, who apologized when she shouldn't have, who made herself smaller to make room for his ego, that Claire was finally gone. "Get out," he said to my sisters. "All of you. I need to talk to my wife alone." "No," I said simply. "What?" I said no. "They're staying. I want witnesses for whatever you're about to say to me." "Witnesses? Jesus Christ, Claire, you're acting paranoid. I'm your husband, not some criminal. Then explain to me why your mother was supervising the removal of my belongings while you conveniently had me out of the house. Explain why there's a work order here requesting the removal of boxes from my home office, personal items from our bedroom, furniture that belonged to my grandmother. Explain why you never mentioned any of this to me. Richard ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd once found endearing and now just found irritating. I was trying to make things easier for you. I know change is hard for you, so I thought if I handled everything, you wouldn't have to stress about it. The gaslighting was so smooth, so automatic, that I wondered how many times he'd used it before and I just accepted it. How many times I'd let him rewrite reality because it was easier than fighting. That's not true, I said quietly. If you were trying to make things easier for me, you would have talked to me about it. You would have asked what I wanted, what I needed. You wouldn't have waited until I was conveniently out of the house to start removing my things. They're not your things, they're our things. And I'm allowed to make decisions about our home without running everything past you like you're my mother. So you just run everything past your actual mother instead? The words came out before I could stop them, sharp and bitter. Richard's face went white, then red. Don't you dare bring my mother into this. She was trying to help. She's always trying to help, and all you do is resent her for it. Help with what, exactly? Help you remove evidence of my existence from our home? Help you prepare for the divorce you asked Diane about 2 weeks ago? The room went absolutely silent. Richard's face cycled through several expressions: shock, anger, fear, before settling on defensive anger. She told you about that? That conversation was confidential. She's my sister. And apparently, unlike your mother, she actually cares about my well-being. I was just asking questions. I was just trying to understand what the process would be like. It didn't mean anything. Asking questions about divorce means something, Richard. Planning to remove my belongings from our home means something. Having your mother coordinate all of this while sending me off to a spa day means something. My voice was rising now, 15 years of suppressed anger finally finding its way out. So why don't you stop lying and tell me what's really going on? Are you having an affair? Are you just tired of being married? What? He was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence, I saw the truth written all over his face. Not an affair, though maybe that would have been simpler. No, this was worse. This was apathy. This was him looking at me and feeling nothing, no love, no hate, just the mild irritation you feel toward an obligation you're ready to be done with. I think we've grown apart, he said finally, and the corporate speak of it, the HR-approved language of it, made me want to scream. We want different things. We're at different places in our lives. I think it would be better for both of us if we made a clean break. A clean break, I repeated. Is that what this was? Your version of a clean break? Removing my belongings while I'm away? Turning my own mother-in-law against me? Making me feel crazy for wanting to know what's happening in my own home? I was trying to be kind, he said, and he actually sounded like he believed it. I was trying to make this easier for everyone. Mom said if we just handled everything while you were relaxing, you wouldn't have to deal with the stress of it. How thoughtful, Diane said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Really, Richard, that's next-level consideration. Remove all evidence of your wife's existence while she's getting a massage. I'm sure she really appreciated the gesture. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me when my sister is being emotionally manipulated and legally defrauded. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to get a lawyer. Claire's going to get a lawyer. And you're going to divide everything fairly and legally, with no more stunts like today's. Richard looked at me, ignoring Diane completely. Is that what you want? Lawyers? A fight over every piece of furniture and every dollar in our account? I was trying to avoid all of that. I was trying to be generous. Generous. The laugh that came out of me was harsh. You were trying to be generous by taking my grandmother's table? By removing boxes from my office that probably contain my old portfolio and design work? By literally erasing me from our home? You're being dramatic. You're always so dramatic about everything. And there it was. The thing he'd been saying for years in 1,000 different ways. I was too much, too emotional, too sensitive, too demanding. The problem was never his behavior, never his choices, never his mother's interference. The problem was always me for having feelings about it. I want you to leave, I said quietly. What? I want you to leave this house right now. Pack a bag, go to your mother's, go to a hotel, I don't care. But I want you out of here tonight. Richard stared at me like I'd lost my mind. This is my house. I'm not going anywhere. Then I will. I stood up, my legs shaking but holding me. I'll take the kids and I'll go. And tomorrow my lawyer will be filing for legal separation and requesting that you be barred from disposing of any joint assets until this is settled. You can't take my children. They're our children. And they're old enough to choose where they want to stay. Maya, Connor, do you want to stay here with your father, or come with me to Aunt Diane's? There was a long moment of silence, and then Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway. Her face was streaked with tears, but her voice was steady. I'm going with Mom. Me too, Connor said quietly from behind her. The look on Richard's face was almost worth all of the pain of the day. Shock, hurt, and underneath it all, the dawning realization that he'd miscalculated badly. He'd thought he could manage me the way he'd been managing me for years, thought he could manipulate and redirect and gaslight until I accepted whatever reality he'd decided on. He'd never considered that I might fight back. You're turning my children against me, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I'm not turning them against anyone. They're making their own choice based on what they've seen and heard. If you don't like their choice, maybe think about why they're making it. I went upstairs and threw clothes into a bag, my hands shaking so badly I could barely zip it closed. Maya and Connor were doing the same in their rooms, moving with the efficiency of kids who'd maybe been preparing for this moment longer than they'd let on. Diane and Julia helped carry bags to the car while Vanessa stood guard over Richard, who'd collapsed onto the couch looking like someone had pulled the rug out from under him. As we loaded the last bag, he called out to me, Claire, please, can we just talk about this? Can we figure this out like adults? I paused in the doorway, looking at the man I'd been married to for 15 years. The man I'd loved, or thought I'd loved, or maybe just loved the idea of. The man who'd given me 2 beautiful children and a comfortable life and absolutely nothing else that mattered. We are figuring it out like adults, Richard. That's exactly what we're doing. For the first time in our marriage, I'm acting like an adult instead of a child who needs your permission to have opinions and feelings and boundaries. I never treated you like a child. You did. You just did it so carefully, so gradually that I didn't notice until it was too late. But I notice now. I walked out of my house, my children following behind me, my sisters surrounding us like a protective wall. Richard stood in the doorway watching us leave, and for just a moment, I saw something in his face that might have been regret. But it was too little, too late, and I was done waiting for him to become the person I'd needed him to be all along. Diane's house was bigger than mine, with a guest room that Maya and I could share and a den with a pull-out couch for Connor. She'd been through this herself 3 years ago, had rebuilt her life from the ashes of her marriage, and now she was offering me the same shelter she'd once needed. You can stay as long as you need, she said, helping Maya carry her bags upstairs. Take your time. Figure out what you want. There's no rush. But there was a rush, I could feel it. A rushing in my blood, in my thoughts. A sense that I'd been asleep for 15 years and was only now waking up to find that the life I'd built was a cage I'd constructed around myself, one compromise at a time. That night, after the kids were asleep and my sisters had finally gone to bed, I sat in Diane's kitchen with a cup of tea I wasn't drinking and my phone in my hand. There were texts from Richard, a progression from angry to pleading to angry again. There were texts from Patricia, vicious and accusatory, calling me selfish and ungrateful and a terrible mother. There were texts from friends who'd apparently already heard something was happening, asking if I was okay, offering help I wasn't sure I wanted. But there was also a text from Maya, sent from the room we were sharing. I'm proud of you, Mom. I know that was hard. I love you. I cried then, finally, the tears I'd been holding back all day. Not sad tears, not really. Something more complicated. Grief for the marriage that had ended, relief that it was finally over, fear about what came next, and underneath it all, something that felt almost like hope. Tomorrow I would call lawyers and figure out my rights. Tomorrow I would start the process of untangling 15 years of shared finances, and shared property and shared life. Tomorrow I would begin the hard work of figuring out who Claire Donovan was when she wasn't defined by her relationship to other people. But tonight, I sat in my sister's kitchen and let myself cry for everything I'd lost and everything I was about to lose and everything I might finally get the chance to find. 6 months passed like a dream I was finally waking from. The divorce proceedings were ugly in the way these things always are, with Richard's lawyer trying to claim I'd abandoned the marital home and Patricia submitting a statement claiming I was an unfit mother. But Maya's video and my documentation of the attempted furniture removal painted a different picture, and Richard's own text messages about divorce lawyers weeks before the spa day incident sealed his fate. We sold the house. Neither of us wanted it anymore. That building full of ghosts and broken promises. I took my half of the proceeds and rented a small 3-bedroom apartment near the art district, the kind of neighborhood I'd loved before I married Richard, and convinced myself I needed suburban safety. Maya and Connor split their time between my place and Richard's new condo, and slowly, painfully, we all adjusted to this new configuration of family. The most unexpected thing was how much lighter I felt. I'd spent 15 years carrying the weight of Richard's expectations, Patricia's criticisms, the constant effort of making myself smaller. Without that weight, I could breathe again. I could think again. I could remember who I used to be before I became someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's disappointment. I started taking design classes at the community college, the ones Richard had dismissed as a waste of money. My portfolio was outdated, but my eye was still good, and the professor of my graphic design course pulled me aside after the 3rd week to tell me I had real talent. Not had talent past tense, but have talent present tense, as if the years I'd spent away from my passion hadn't erased it completely. One evening 8 months after that terrible spa day, I was working on a design project at my kitchen table when Maya came home from Richard's place. She dropped her bag by the door and stood there for a moment, just watching me work. "You look different," she said finally. I looked up from my laptop. "Different how?" "Happy. You look happy." The observation hit me harder than it should have. Had I really been so obviously miserable for so long? Had my children seen through the smile I thought I'd perfected? "I think I am happy," I said, surprised by the truth of it. "Or at least I'm on my way there." Maya sat down across from me, her face serious in that way that meant she'd been thinking about something for a while. "Dad's getting serious with someone. Her name is Amber. She's 28. The age registered like a slap. 28. 14 years younger than me, barely older than the students in my design classes. Of course Richard had moved on quickly. Of course he'd found someone young and uncomplicated. Someone who didn't have years of resentment and disappointment weighing her down. "How do you feel about that?" I asked carefully. Maya shrugged. "She's nice enough, I guess. Kind of boring. She laughs at all his jokes even when they're not funny. It's weird watching someone try so hard to make him like her." She paused, then added quietly, "Is that what you used to do?" The question was like looking in a mirror and seeing your past self staring back. Yes, I wanted to say. Yes, I spent years trying so hard to be what he wanted, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, agreeing with opinions I didn't share, making myself smaller and smaller until there was almost nothing left. "Sometimes," I said instead, "when you love someone you want to make them happy. But there's a difference between making someone happy and losing yourself trying to be what they want. That's what Aunt Diane says. She says you're finding yourself again." I think she's right. Maya was quiet for a moment, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I like this version of you better. The one who does her own work and gets excited about design projects, and doesn't apologize for everything all the time." I squeezed back, my throat tight with emotion. "Me too, baby. Me too." The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in March, almost a year to the day after that spa day invitation had arrived. I sat in a courtroom with my lawyer while Richard sat with his, and a judge divided our 15 years into assets and debts and custody arrangements. Patricia wasn't there, which was probably for the best. She'd apparently told Richard I'd poisoned his children against him, which wasn't true but also wasn't entirely false. The kids had simply seen what they'd been trained not to see for years. When it was over, when the papers were signed and filed and recorded, I walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than I had in years. My sisters were waiting outside, all 3 of them having taken time off work to be there for me. "How do you feel?" Vanessa asked, linking her arm through mine. "Free," I said, and meant it. We went to lunch at a small cafe near the art district, the kind of place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. While we ate, Julia pulled out her phone and showed me something she'd found online. "Remember that design firm you applied to before you got pregnant with Maya? Before you gave up your career?" I nodded, remembering the excitement I'd felt sending that application, the dreams I'd had of building something meaningful. "They're hiring. Senior designer position." I think you should apply. I looked at the job posting on her phone, reading through the requirements and responsibilities. A year ago, I would have immediately listed all the reasons I couldn't do it. Too long out of the field. Portfolio too outdated. Not good enough. Too risky. But that woman who would have said those things wasn't here anymore. She'd been packed up and removed like furniture on a spa day Saturday, replaced by someone who was slowly remembering what it felt like to take up space, to have ambitions, to believe in her own worth. I'll apply, I said, and my sisters cheered loud enough that other diners turned to look. I didn't get that job, but I got another one, at a smaller firm that valued fresh perspectives, and was willing to take a chance on someone returning to the field. The pay wasn't great at first, but it was mine. Money I earned doing work I loved, work that mattered to me, work that reminded me every day that I was more than just someone's ex-wife or someone's mother. Maya graduated high school that spring and chose a college 3 hours away. She came home for dinner the week before she left, and we sat on my small balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Are you going to be okay when I'm gone? She asked. I'm going to miss you terribly, I said honestly. But yes, I'm going to be okay. Better than okay, actually. Good. Because you deserve to be happy, Mom. You deserve to have a life that's yours. I thought about that phrase for a long time after she left. A life that's yours. Not a life built around someone else's needs and expectations. Not a life spent making yourself smaller to make room for someone else's ego. But a life that truly belonged to me. Connor started his senior year that fall, already talking about colleges and futures and possibilities. He'd grown comfortable moving between his father's condo and my apartment, had learned to navigate the complexity of divorced parents with the resilience of youth. Sometimes he mentioned Amber, Richard's girlfriend who was now living with him. Sometimes he mentioned Patricia, who'd apparently softened slightly toward the grandchildren if not toward me. I listened and nodded and didn't say the bitter things I sometimes thought, because my children didn't need to carry my resentment. On the anniversary of that spa day, my sisters showed up at my apartment with champagne and takeout from my favorite Thai place. We sat on my balcony, the four of us, talking and laughing like we used to before marriages and mortgages and responsibilities had made us all so serious. Remember last year? Vanessa said, raising her glass. When we thought we were giving you one last good day before everything fell apart? Turns out it wasn't the last good day, I said. It was the first day of getting my life back. We toasted to that, to new beginnings and hard-won freedom, and the kind of sisterhood that catches you when you fall and helps you learn to stand again. Later, after they'd gone home and I was alone in my quiet apartment with city lights twinkling outside my window, I thought about everything that had changed in a year. I'd lost a marriage but gained myself. I'd lost a house but gained a home that was truly mine. I'd lost the life I'd built, but gained the freedom to build something better. Richard had tried to erase me from our shared life, to pack me up and remove me while I was conveniently away getting a massage. But you can't erase someone who refuses to disappear. You can't remove someone who decides to stay, to fight, to take up space and demand to be seen. I was Claire Donovan. Not Richard's ex-wife, not Patricia's disappointing daughter-in-law, not the woman who'd lost herself trying to be what everyone else needed. Just Claire. A designer, a mother, a sister, a woman who was finally learning what it meant to belong to herself. And that was more than enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.